Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namani. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisheshai Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarini. Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Narancheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tatho Jayam Uddhirayet नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवति उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. Hare Krishna. So last week we went through the prayers of Vitrasur, right? Mataji, recollect anything about last class? So you want to sum up? Because others haven't heard. So if you can.
Yeah, just that. Okay, I remember a little bit. But Vitrasur was asur, and but he was also a devotee of the Lord, and he. I'm not sure. I remember a lot of it, Prabhuji. So, but then, yeah, when he was attacked, but he himself, he was attacked by Indradev, and in that war, Indradev attacked him with a special weapon, um, and he lost his hands, and he prayed to the Lord, Lord Krishna, and yeah, and then when he before he breathed his last.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So the whole gist is, so there was a demon called Vitrasura, right? He was an asura, okay. And then, as usual, so he was terror personified, okay. So he was actually giving hard time to the devatas because there is an history which we spoke in, but yeah. So he was actually born out of the oblation which his father Twasta actually did it, okay. And so there was a fight which happened between him and Indra. So Indra had to get a in other demigods couldn't fight against him, even Indra. So Vitrasur was that powerful. So in Indra and the devatas had to go to the Lord's abode and request him that so there is so much of instability, and then we need. They actually asked his help. Then the Lord advised that so you'll have to reach out to Dadichi Muni. Okay, so Dadaji Muni was actually meditating on Sankarshna, I think Narayana, and then he had so he said that so you'll have to take his bones and then create a thunderbolt, and then the thunderbolt was created, and then there was a fight wherein Vitrasura actually came to the fight uh, uh, to actually lose, right? And so still he gave hard time to King Indra, and then so Indra was at, if you look in between, see he actually he was almost lost because the thunderbolt actually slipped from his hand. But still Vitrasura was actually giving him time to pick it up and then to kill him, right? So and then we saw that Vitrasura had higher taste because look, and then Vitrasura also was advising to his men and to the devatas also what is right, what is wrong, right? And then So in here, right, Indra could understand that, so he should be an devotee because he's a very liberated person. So, and at the end, so Indra kills him. But what happens is Indra actually gets the material benefit. So he actually wanted to retain his position. So his desire was materialistic, whereas Vitrasura's desire is to go back to Godhead. And then we are this question. So now Parikshit Maharaj asks Sukadev Goswami that how can a asura have these qualities? Okay. So to that, Sukadev Goswami actually gives the explanation that this particular personality is nothing but in his previous birth he was Chitraketu Maharaj. So Chitraketu Maharaj had a curse. Okay, so Mother Parvati had given him a curse to become a demon. Okay, so he became a demon. Okay, so because Chitraketu Maharaj was a devotee, so today we'll actually go through the previous life of Chitraketu Maharaj. So Chitraketu Maharaj actually got the darshan of the Lord, and then after that he was traveling all throughout the universe, and then it happened that he went to Kailash and then saw that Mother Parvati was sitting on the lap of Lord Shiva, and then Lord Shiva was actually giving some was discussing the devotional subjects. Okay, so looking at that, so he advised, actually Chitraketu advised Lord Shiva, but Shiva is number one Vaishnava, right? So actually, ideally, he should not have done it, but he didn't do anything, say wrong. So, but say Mother Parvati felt that so it was not right on his part to advise Lord Shiva because he was not on par with him or he was not greater than Shiva. So then she curses that he will become a demon, a child in the next life. So, and then Chitraketu Maharaj accepts it, and then that's what he became Vitrasura. And then again, because say he had the company of the Lord, right? The Lord again wanted him back. That's the reason he was killed with the Vajra and then he went back. So this is what happened in that episode. And now today, these are Chitraketu Maharaj episodes. So wherein we'll be seeing say about Chitraketu Maharaj. Okay, so the previous life. Okay, so what was his life, right? And then how did things move on, right? So we'll just look at the lineage little bit, and then we'll see his prayers because there are not many prayers. We'll read through today. Yeah. So first, uh, let me give an intro of Chitraketu. Okay. So Chitraketu Maharaj actually was the king of the universe by then. Okay. So the province of Surasena, right? So he was he was ruling the entire earth, and then he was also a great ruler. Okay. So when he was ruling, right? So there was all abundance. Okay. So there was never a problem like of famine or anything, right? So he was actually ruling the kingdom very nicely. Okay. And then he had all flourishing kingdom, right? And then so he had a lot of money, riches, right? So materially, you name it, so he had everything. Okay. And then so he had even wives, right? So he was he was having almost 1 crore wives, 10 million wives. Yeah? So materially, there is no end to what Chitraketu Maharaj had in. Okay. So he was, but he was actually having some pain all the time. Okay. So in this material world is that's it, that way only, right? So we always feel that the other side of the mountain is always green, right? So because we never see that, and then we think that okay, chalo, that's very nice, and um, our life is not that great, right? So every time you see, right? So when we are jobless, we feel that okay, if we get a job, then it's done, right? Once we get into the job, then we say that okay, say I got uh, a different kind of environment, so I should have worked in that. Yeah, so it doesn't match my caliber. Say even if it matches the caliber, then we say that okay, my manager is not good, so he's not friendly with me, or we'll say that the culture is not suiting me. So we get many things, right? So it never ends. Okay. And so even if you look at um, the others also, right? And then there is a lot of comparison also, right? So between peers also saying that okay, one become an teacher, so teacher feels that the other profession, so could be IT or the other any other field, right? Or a government job. Say he might be feeling that okay, so that's a to-do job, and then there is a lot of fame. On the other side, these guys might be feeling that there is only pressure after some time in IT. So it's better to lead a life there, and then so it's always there, right? So similarly, though he was having all the riches, and then he was having so many opulences and everything, right? But still, he was actually having one desire. Okay. So his desire was to have because he didn't have a son. So his problem was that he wanted to have a son. So that was something which was always actually eating his time and his thought process, right? So he was all so he was desiring to have a son because so and then the reason also was that not for any other reason, so wrong reasons to have a son. So he wanted someone to take up his kingdom, right? So that was his thing. And the other uh, thought process was that so who will give food to the forefathers, right? So we we all perform those ceremonies, right? So pindadan and all, right? So his problem was who will give, because that's an thing which e- everyone does to their forefathers, right? And the ancestors. So he was saying that how could this prasad and offerings go to them? Because that was also else, and how will they be delivered from the whatever conditions they are in, right? So to deliver them, so they need a son, right? So this was actually pulling him like anything. Okay. And then so he was having all beautiful wives and all, but so things were not working. So then there was a powerful sage called Angira Muni, who was actually traveling. So usually in the history, right? So in the Satyugas and all, right? So they had that power. They could, the sages were very powerful, so where they could actually move around the universes and all, right? So it so happened that while traveling, right? So he got attracted to Chitraketu Maharaj. So he just thought, so what is there? will just visit once Chitraketu Maharaj, and then he came in. So Chitraketu Maharaj was a very good king, right? So he did all the formalities, right? So like he stood up from the throne, he offered his seat, he offered the drinking water, right? And then he did all those formalities which has to be done. He honored the guest, right? And then she washed his feet, everything, and then made him to eat, and then she gave him proper asana to sit, made him very comfortable, right? So he handled it very sweetly, right? And then so he was, and the king was sitting at the feet of the sage, right? And then the sage was actually very happy with the hospitality which was being offered by Chitraketu Maharaj. Yeah. So then what happens is now the sages know what is happening, right? So the sage understands that what is going on in the mind of Chitraketu Maharaj. Yeah? So it's not that they don't know. So what happened is he asks, saying that is everything okay? So in your kingdom, is everything working well? And then he says, are you happy with what you have? Yeah. So he asks all those details. Yeah. He says that are all your ministers listening to you, right? And then say, are you okay? And then King Parikshit says this. Chitraketu Maharaj says that yeah, I don't have any problem, but the only thing is that I don't have a son, and so to actually who can take up this kingdom and rule, right? So that's something missing, and so he was lamenting. Okay, so actually Angira Muni, I wanted to give him the instructions. Okay, saying that. So he wanted to instruct him what is the actual the process and all, right? So would take him to bhakti and all. But the problem is he was not in a mood to listen. So Chitraketu Maharaj's mood is not there to actually listen. So even he was not at that stage where he could actually get the good advices from the sages. So even if you teach at bhakti at that time, right, he'll not be able to listen because his mood and everything is there, right? So even if he speaks also, right, that's waste of time and effort, right? So that's how the rishis used to know in the past, right? So they'll actually come and then they talk. So it's like initially they ask some questions, or with that they'll know that okay, say what is the capacity of the receiver, right? So if the receiver is not interested in that subject matter, right? So there is no point, because now if Chitraketu Maharaj says that you'll have to surrender to me, and then you'll have to uh, he'll you'll have to make me your spiritual master and all those things. He is not going to listen because he's no way in that mood. So then what Angira Muni thought is, so we'll have to, I'll teach him in a different way. Okay. So he said that because it was not written for Chitraketu Maharaj, right? So to have a son, but as he's so lamenting, and then so he wanted. So he said that that's fine. I'll actually conduct an ceremony. So he said that I'll do an homa, and then say, and then we'll give oblations, and then we'll get the offerings, the sweet rice, and then among your wives, right? Among these 10 million wives, whosoever is your affectionate, and then so whosoever is like Gunavati, right? So you can give her, and then so after she eats, then you'll be get a son, but with a condition that the son would be the cause for the sorrow and happiness. Okay, so and then he said he gave his name also. So his name would be Harsha Shoka. Okay, so that's what Angira Muni said, and so Chitraketu Maharaj thought that okay, it's fine, right? Anyhow, I'm going to have a son. So what's the big deal? And then children are there to make noise only, right? So it's not that there'll be naughty kids, right? So it's not that all the times the kids should be good, right? He said that it's fine. So that's unlike any other child it should be. So he was thinking in that way, and then he was happy. Okay. And then, so what will happen is, so he'll go to the eldest one. Okay, so the eldest queen, right? So her name is Kritadyuti. Okay. So the king actually will take that sweet rice and then give her, and then she begets the child. Okay, and then they'll actually name him as Harsha Shoka. Okay, so who will be the cause for both happiness and lamentation. Okay, so and then now everyone is happy, right? This king is happy, the queen is happy, right? So the whole kingdom is rejoicing that they have got the Uttaradhikari, and then so it's all pump and show, which is going on. And then, so what happens is, so the tendency, right? We get attached, right? So one thing after the other, right? So when we were small child, so we were attached to our parents, right? And then when we grow up, we'll have brothers and sisters attachment. So the attachment grows on, right? As we move on, right? So and then when we are after that, we'll actually get married, and then we'll get attached to our kids, right? Somewhere in the midlife, you'll have so many attachments, and then slowly, when you're going towards the old age, right, you'll see that one attachment is getting detached, in the sense they are leaving the body, right? So you initially maybe grandfathers, grandmothers, right? And then after that, slowly uncles, and it goes on like that, right? So here, so he was very attached, and then in that, what happened is, the king was actually very much attached to this queen, because this queen gave birth to that son, and then all the time, right? So the king started spending most of his time with this queen, Kritadyuti. Okay, and then see the other wives, right? So the other the whatever percentage we have got, right? So five or six, nine wives, right? So they all actually started envying her, and then they didn't like. They felt that they are getting dishonored, because they felt that if the husband is not looking towards them, and if they don't have a son, right, it's like a maid servant. So they were feeling, so they got into that mood, so wherein they were feeling that they are like the maid servants. Yeah. So what happened is, as days passed by, these queens, right, the other queens, say other than the 10 million out, so if you minus one, right, others hatched a plot saying that we'll kill this child. So they'll actually administer poison to this child, Harsha, and then they'll kill him. Okay. So so he might be sleeping in cradle or somewhere. So they did this episode. He was sleeping. So then, as usual, right? This Kritidyuti asks her maid actually to go and check, just to go and see that what is happening with my child, right? Because there was a caretaker, so she was asking, say, can you go and check what is happening there? Yeah. So she goes and then she starts crying because she saw that the child is no more. So then she informs the queen. Queen starts lamenting. She cries like anything. Same goes to the king. The king actually is becoming senseless because he was their one and only one child, which they got after so much of prayers and all those things. So all these things happened. They came near the dead body, right? The boy's dead body, and then they were actually cursing, saying that is this the law? Is this a good thing which we are doing? So, and then they're saying that Lord, so they were blaming Lord, saying that Krishna, saying that this is not fair on your part to do these all things. So ideally, if there are like if there is a grandfather, father, son, right? So first the grandfather has to die, and then the parent, then the son. But you have done in a reverse way, wherein you're taking off the son, and then the next generations will not have the affection towards their parents, and sons, and all these things. She was actually because they were in a lamenting mood, right? So they were actually blaming all these things, and then even because the acceptance is very difficult, right? So even in our normal life also, so if anyone close, if someone passes by, it's very hard to digest that, right? So because we are materially attached, so she was actually waking up her son, saying that wake up, Harshishoka, your friends are waiting, it's time to play, there's time to eat, laugh. And then she was actually doing all these things, right? And she was actually crying. And then in that scene, right, these two rishis enter, Narada Muni and Angira Muni. So they enter, right? So they enter as an some normal brahmana. So they'll disguise it and then they'll enter it as an avaduta. So they'll come in normal brahman thing, and then they'll say that. So what are you lamenting for? Right. So these are all temporary. Okay. And so these family relations, these bondages are nothing but temporary. So it is like they'll explain that. So if the water is flowing through, right? So the leaves, there'll be different leaves which will join for some time, and then after some time, right, those leaves will again dismantle themselves and then move on, right? So these are all not permanent. And then we have taken many millions of births, right? So it's not that this is the only birth which we have taken. So we'll tell that there are so many births which occur, and then this bodily relationship, and then this bond, so the mother father, the family relation is temporary. This is until this. It's only just for this part of the chapter, right? So in our so we have crossed so many millions of births, right? And then every birth depending upon our karma, right, we get the suitable family, right? So now it's human form. So we don't know. So what all things we went in, yes, in our past. So he says that there is nothing to actually lament for it, right? So you are actually looking from the bodily relationships, which is temporary, right? So the soul was existing. So he was actually giving the definition of soul and the body should not get attached to the body, right? And then they say that, and then Angira Muni actually brings back uh, Harshishoka. So they'll say that they said that we don't want anything, but we want him back. So they'll actually bring that boy Harshishoka back. Then so he'll see two persons, right? So actually, these are Harshishoka's mother and father. So then these guys will actually come and say that so I'm your father, and then don't you remember this? Then the child says that which father of which birth? Okay, so it's like that, and then they try. Then whatever Angira Muni and Narad Muni actually tell, right? So them they'll understand that okay, this is not the right way, right? And they'll actually explain him all the things, right? So how we are not the body, right? And then say we are eternally actually connected, right? And then there is no relationship with this, right? So then they actually the king understands. So there is a longer discussion which goes on, and then they give lot many examples. Okay, so suppose that the the king, the queen realized that okay, so we are actually lamenting for an unreasonable thing. So that's fine, and so that was the destiny of the child, right? So because the child was born, and then he had that much only. His ayu was that much. So that's the thing, and then so we'll have to move on. So he understands that okay, so this was unfavorable, right? And then with actually tagging the bodily conceptions, okay, then what happens is he actually because Chitraketu Maharaj is an elevated soul, right? He says that so whatever I've done, so this is wrong, and then he says that he could understand that those brahmanas, the disguised ones, they are actually they are not an ordinary people, or they are not the ordinary souls. Yeah. So they are actually highly elevated souls, right? So then he says that I know that you have you are whatever you have preached, right? So these are something which a normal man cannot do. So please actually reveal yourself, and then they reveal that. So their actual stuff, saying that I am Muni, and then I'm Angira, right? And then so Chitraketu Maharaj even says that I'm like an village animal, right? So you have enlightened me, right? So then the king actually l- takes the shelter of them, and then he says that please enlighten me. So how can I move forward now? Then they actually tell him that, say they give him the instructions, and then they say that, so now you'll have to actually take the shelter of the Lord, right? And then they'll ask him to take bath, right? And then uh, he takes the bath, and then they give him so what to chant and all, right? So what happens is even the queens and all also, they'll also understand that this is not the right thing which they have done in. Okay. So after that, he actually Chitraketu, Narada gave Chitraketu the mantra, and then he actually uh, meditated on the Lord, right? So it so happened that he could actually see the Lord also. Okay. So we'll just scan through. Yeah. So if you see in right here, so you're able to see my screen, right? So this is text number 28, which I'm referring.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So you see, so Narad Muni gave him, he was the spiritual master who gave him all the details, and then he was fasting and drinking only water. Okay. Chitraketu for 1 week continuously chanted with great care and attention the mantra given by Narada Muni. Okay. So after 1 week, repeated practicing the mantra received from spiritual master, Chitraketu achieved the rule of planet of Vidyadharas as an intermediate product of his spiritual advancement in knowledge. Right. Therefore, within a few days, by influence of the mantra that Chitraketu had practiced, his mind became increasingly enlightened in spiritual progress, and he attained shelter at the lotus feet of Anantadeva. Upon reaching the shelter of Lord Shesha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Chitraketu saw that he was as white as the white fibers of lotus flowers. He was dressed in bluish garments and adorned with a brilliantly glittering helmet, armlets, belts, and bangles. His face was smiling, and his eyes were reddish. He was surrounded by such exalted, liberated persons as Sanat Kumara. So he saw with the Kumaras. So he got the darshan, and then he's describing. You see, so everywhere the description is given fully. So it's not half. Uh, So as soon as Chitraketu Maharaj saw the Supreme Lord, he was cleansed of all material contaminations and situated in his original Krishna consciousness. Being completely purified, he became silent and grave. And because of love for the Lord, tears fell from his eyes and his hair stood on. And with great devotion and love, he offered his respectful obeisances unto the original personality of Godhead. With tears of love and affection, Chitraketu repeatedly moistened the resting place of the Supreme Lord's lotus feet. Because his voice was choked in ecstasy for a considerable time, he was unable to utter any of the letters of the alphabet to offer the suitable prayers. Okay. So thereafter, by controlling his mind with intelligence and thus restricting his senses from external engagements, he recovered suitable words with which to express his feelings. Thus, he began offering prayers to Lord, who is the personification of the Holy Scriptures. Okay. The Sattvata Samhitas, like the Brahma Samhita and the Narad Pancharatra. And who is the spiritual master of all. He offered his prayers as follows. So from here in, right, Chitraketu Maharaj actually offers his prayers. Okay. Chitraketu Maharaj said, O unconquerable Lord, although you cannot be conquered by anyone, you are certainly conquered by devotees who have control of the mind and senses. They can keep you under the control because you are causelessly merciful to the devotees who desire no material profit from you. Indeed, you give yourself to them, and because of this, you also have full control of your devotees. So this is a sweet reciprocation which goes on between the devotees and the Lord, right? So the devotees actually conquer the Lord, right? And then the Lord gets conquered by the devotees. So it's so wonderful, right? So uh, the Lord resides in the heart of the devotees, and the Lord always thinks about the devotees' welfare. So that's an elevated platform, yeah. So, my dear Lord, this cosmic manifestation and its creation, maintenance, and annihilations are all but your opulences. Okay. Since Lord Brahma and other creators are nothing but small portions of a portion of you, their, their partial power to create does not make them God Ishvara. The consciousness of themselves as separate lords is therefore merely false prestige. It is not valid. You exist in the beginning, middle, and end of everything. For the most minute particle of the cosmic manifestation, the atom to the gigantic universes and total material energy. So she is actually mentioning that he is present everywhere. Right? So the Lord is present in the smallest atom to the gigantic universes. Nonetheless, you are eternal, having no beginning, end, or middle. You are perceived to exist in these three phases, and thus you are permanent. When the cosmic manifestation does not exist, you exist as the original potency. Yeah. And then every universe is covered by 7 layers. Okay. So every Brahmanda is actually covered by 7 layers. We have koti Brahmandas. Okay. Unlimited. So in that, earth, water, fire, air, sky, and the total energy and false ego each are 10 times greater than the previous one. So one layer is, if one layer is there, if there is one more, it is 10 times greater than that. Similarly, the third one would be 10 times more than the second. Yeah. So it goes on in that. So there are innumerable universes besides this one, and although they are unlimitedly large, they move about like atoms in you. So, but for the Lord, it is small. Therefore, you are called unlimited, Ananta, right? So here we'll read one or two verses. Yeah, here you see, right? O Lord, O supreme unintelligent persons who thirst for sense enjoyment, who worship various demigods, are no better than animals in the human form of life. Because of their animalistic propensities, they fail to worship your lordship, and instead they worship the insignificant demigods who are but small sparks of your glory. Okay, so he's saying he's glorifying the Lord, saying that so there are unintelligent men so who actually worship the demigods and then they ignore the cause of all causes. With the destruction of the entire universe, including the demigods, the benediction received from the demigods also vanish. Okay, so whatever boons they give in, right? So it's also temporary, right? So yeah, this is the verse, right? In 7.20, it says that Kamestasya Terhita Jnana Prapadyante na Devata. So those who are having whose minds are distorted, they actually worship the devatas. Uh, O Supreme Lord, if person obsessed with material desires for sense gratification through material opulence worship you, who are the source of all knowledge and transcendental to material qualities, they are not subject to rebirth, just as sterilized or fried seeds do not produce plants. Living entities are subjected to the repetition of birth and death because they are conditioned by material nature. Uh, But since you are transcendental, one who is inclined to associate with you in transcendent escapes the conditions of material nature. So if at all we are connected with the Lord, right? So we can actually transcend this ocean of material nature. Yeah. So all this material nature or this material ocean, we can actually get rid of it if we have connected to the Lord. Right? So the Lord gives us this special ability, so wherein He'll actually take care of us. Yeah? Because with our prayers we can't do anything. So Only our spiritual masters like Prabhupada or so, right? So they can only deliver us. Yeah. O conquerable one, when you spoke about Bhagavad Dharma, which is the uncontaminated religious system for achieving the shelter of your lotus feet, that was your victory. Okay. Persons who have no material desires like the Kumaras, okay, who are self-satisfied sages, worship you to be liberated from material contaminations. In other words, they accept the process of Bhagavad Dharma to achieve shelter at your lotus feet. So there are two, three verses here. So we'll read through the purports wherein Chitraketu Maharaj actually stresses on the Bhagavad Dharma. Okay. So Bhagavad Dharma is taught by the Lord Himself. This is nothing but Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. So we'll read those things. Yeah. So these things will actually read one or two purports. Yeah? Mataji, you want to read this purport?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
As stated by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sandhu, Anya Bhilashita Sunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavritam Kulyane Krishnanu Shilanam Bhaktir Uttama.
Yes.
One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desires for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service.
1 minute,
Then,
Mataji.
yeah,
So this is from our Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, right, by Rupa Goswami. So Anyabhilashita Sunyam. So we should not have any other desires. Yeah? So this is Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. So we should not have any tendency towards karma, yoga or jnana yoga, right? So anukulena Krishna Silanam Bhaktir Uttamam. So he says that whatever we do, so which is favorable to the Krishna, right? Anukulena Krishna Silanam Bhaktir Uttamam. So all our things which we do, right, it should be for Krishna, right? So then that is the pure devotional service. Okay. Go ahead, Mataji. Sorry.
no. Hare Krishna. One should render transcendental loving service to Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desires for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. This is called pure devotional service. The Narad Pancharatra also says, Sarvopadhi Vinirmuktam Tatta Paratvena Nirmalam Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchyate. One should be free from all material designations and cleansed of all material contamination. He should be restored to his pure identity, in which he engages his senses in the service of the proprietor of the senses. That is called devotional service. This is also called Bhagavata Dharma. Without material aspirations, one should simply serve Krishna as advised in Bhagavad Gita, Narad Pancharatra, and Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavata Dharma is the process of religion enunciated by pure devotees, direct representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead like Narad, Sukadeva, Goswami, and their humble servants in the disciplic successions. By understanding Bhagavata Dharma, one immediately becomes free from material contamination. Living entities who are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are loitering in this material world suffering. When they are instructed by the Lord Himself about Bhagavata Dharma and they adopt it, that is a victory for the Lord, for He then reclaims these fallen souls. A devotee following the principles of Bhagavata Dharma feels very much obligated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He can understand the difference between life without Bhagavata Dharma and the life with the Bhagavata Dharma, and thus he ever remains obliged to the Lord. Taking to Krishna consciousness and bringing fallen souls to Krishna consciousness is victory for Lord Krishna. Save Pumsam पारो धर्मो यतो भक्तिर अधोक सजे अहैतुकी अप्रतिहता ययतमा सुप्रसिद्धति. The supreme occupation dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. Bhagavad Gita 1.2.6. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam is the pure transcendental process of religion. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. So here about, so there are instructions given for the Bhagavad Dharma. Yeah. So this is how we should do bhakti. Yeah. And then here the next one, next quotation, right? So these are all very nice verses. Yeah. Sarvapadi Vinurmuktam. So we should give up all our material designations like I am manager, I am CEO. So that's all in your materialistic life. But when you're coming to spiritual life, we are dasanu das. Because if we carry on those hangovers when you're in spiritual life, right, we can't advance, right? So Rupa Goswami happens to be the one was the prime minister. He was the prime minister of Nawab Hussain Shah's regime. Okay, and then he gave up all his designations when he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then he actually became his disciple. He left everything. So he had at that time he had some 40,000 gold coins. Yeah. So and then so he was having his own palace, everything. So once he left everything and then he was a mendicant. And then he was only having an, an a normal, say, normal mendicant dress. That's it. So that too not new. He used to only wear the used ones. Yeah. And then he never used to sit under a tree. He never had a home for him. And then whatever tree he sits, right? So he changes that tree every day because he don't want to get attached to the tree also. So tat paratvena nirmalam rishikeshena rishikesha sevanam bhaktiruchyate. So we should actually, so we should leave all our designations and then we should actually serve to the master of the senses, who is nothing but Lord Krishna. So that is the best process of bhakti. Yeah, we should engage our senses to the proprietor of the senses. And then this is also Save pumsam paro dharma yatho bhakti radokshaja ahetuki aparhita yayatma super sidati. So here also the supreme occupation for all humanity is that by which man can attend loving devotional service. Save pumsam paro dharma. So that's the ultimate objective. Yeah. So being full of contradictions, all forms of religions, but Bhagavad Dharma work under conceptions of purative results and distinctions of you and I and yours and mine. The followers of Srimad Bhagavatam have no such consciousness. Okay. They're all Krishna consciousness, thinking that they are Krishna's and Krishna is theirs. There are other low class religious systems which are contemplated for killing of animals, enemies, or the gain of mystic power. But such religious subsystems, being full of passion and envy, are impure and temporary. Because they are full of envy, they are full of irreligion. So this is the other religions, right? So wherein Prabhupada writes a longer purport, yeah. So wherein, so we'll see one paragraph. Yeah. Yeah, so Bhagavad Dharma has no contradictions. Conceptions of your religion and my religions are completely absent from Bhagavad Dharma. Right? Bhagavad Dharma means following the orders given by the Supreme Lord Bhagavan, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamikam Sharanam Braja. God is one and God is for everyone. Therefore, everyone must surrender to the God. That is the pure conception of religion. Okay, so this is what the religion is. Whatever God orders constitute religion. eh? Dharmam tu sakshat bhagvat pranitam. In Bhagavad Dharma, there is no question of what you believe and what I believe. Everyone must believe in the Supreme Lord and carry out His order. Anukulena Krishna Silanam. Whatever Krishna says, whatever God says should be directly carried out. That is the dharma or religion. So that's what. There should be no changes or no concoctions, and we should not tweak it, right? So that's what. And then there is no belief of your belief, my belief, right? So there is no conflicts, and then there are no fightings also. So everything is Krishna's, and then we are Krishna's. That's the notion, right? There will be no fightings and all, right? So which we see in our day and our day out, right? Right, and then so Bhagavad Dharma is Sarvatokshata, the best of all religious systems, because those who follow Bhagavad Dharma are not envious of anyone. Pure Bhagavatas, pure devotees invite everyone without envy to join Krishna consciousness movement. A devotee is therefore exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shrudam Sarva Bhutanam, he is friend of all living entities. Therefore, this is the best of all religious system, whereas so-called religious are meant for a particular type of person who believes in a particular way. Such discrimination has no place in Krishna consciousness or Bhagavad Dharma. If we scrutinize the religious system meant for worship of demigods or anyone else, put the supreme personality of Godhead, we will find that they are full of envy and therefore impure. Okay. So if you look at even ISKCON, right? So what do we preach? So we don't target any sect of people, right? It's open for anyone, right? So even Haridas Thakur, right? Haridas Thakur was a Muslim, right? But he is given the he is respected the most, and then he's our Namacharya, right? So in at least in ISKCON, right? So there is no restriction for any religion. So all are equal. So anyone can come, anyone can chant, anyone can take up the beads, and then so anyone can become a Vaishnava, right? So that's our dharma. How can a religious system that produces envy of oneself and others be beneficial for oneself and for them? What is auspicious about following such a system? What is actually to be gained by causing pain to one's own self due to self envy and by causing pain to others? One arouses your anger and practices irreligion. So this is all Prabhupada is explaining a lot about these things. Yeah. So my dear Lord, one's occupational duty is instructed in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, right? Here it is mentioned, right? The religious principles, according to your point of view, which never deviates from the highest goal of life. Those who follow their occupational duties under your supervision, being equal to all living entities, moving and non moving, and not considering high and low, are called Aryans. Such Aryans worship you. Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, this is what more on Bhagavad and Bhagavad Dharma. My Lord, it is not impossible for anyone to be immediately freed from all material contaminations by seeing you. Not to speak of seeing you personally, merely by hearing the holy name of your Lordship. Only once, even Chandalas, men of the lowest class, are freed from the material contamination. Under the circumstances, who will not be freed from material contaminations by simply seeing you. Because with this, his prayers, and so he says that if the name itself is sufficient, right? So that's what Prabhupada gave us, right? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us this for this Kali Yuga, right? There is no other way. So chanting, if we take the name itself, right? So that itself is beneficial. So in this current day and age, right? So we can only get closer to the Lord by chanting His names and discussing about Him. Yeah. So Bhagavatam is called Grantharaj, right? Because Bhagavatam itself is Lord Krishna. Even if we read and then if we listen about Him, right? So that will take us closer to Krishna. And then we all know there is no other medicine for Kali Yuga. Only thing is chanting. Then go back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. I think we'll stop here for today. Attendance sheet, I'll ask Mataji to post it. So you can actually give your mark your attendance. So we'll wind up Hare Krishna for today. Matajis and Prabhujis, or anything you'd like to ask in today's class.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
This is a general question. So actually, one of the devotees forwarded me one post saying that this sugar is refined through this bone char. So from that day, I started eating only jaggery. So how to see this, Prabhu?
Okay. So that's the see, Prabhu. For us, right? The actual thing is that's all there. So, but we don't know, right? So, do we know that it's really made of bones and all? That we don't know. So, even the oil, Prabhu, which we eat in, right? It's the edible oil. So, what is it? It's all chemical only. So, we don't know. So, what is it made of, right? So, yeah, things which are clear in instructions, right? So, wherein we have this caffeine and all, right? Where we have egg, meat, and all those things, where we have animal fat and all those things, right? So, we'll have to restrict, but sugar, at least we can't, Prabhu. So, because all our sweets and all everything is made of sugar, unless you have your own farm where you have your sugar canes produced and then you churn out the sugar from that canes. But yeah, those messages are there, Prabhu. But nowhere it is proved, right? Is it proved saying that the
Yeah,
sugar is
actually, I've heard some companies use and some companies don't use, but we don't know which company uses and which don't.
possibly you start reading the manufacturing. So what does it contain? And then if you see somewhere it's some bone or something, then ignore that packet and then pick some other packet which doesn't have those info.
Yeah, yeah. Because even companies also normally they don't mention. So these the technologies they use for refinement.
That see through
So
if there is any
yeah,
purer sugar. Um, Nothing is pure, Prabhu. So the ghee and all, are we using the proper pure ghee? So we don't know. So
okay.
unless we have seen so those things, and then if there is something written, yes, we'll have to ignore those things. But I think sugar is okay. So you can consume, Prabhu.
Okay, okay.
So what all you'll stop? You'll stop eating prasad also.
No,
I
I
mean,
may now I use only jaggery.
yeah, I understand, but I'm telling you. So unless if we get,
Yeah, we can't stop everything. So that is also there.
yeah, but in temples and all, we get all things made of sugar only. No? So,
Correct, correct. So
unless we get an instruction from our temple saying that okay, sugar also is restricted, then we'll stop it. What's there?
yeah, got it, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay. We'll wind up for today. Thank you for your association. Vancha kalpatarobhyascha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnebhyo namo namo. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.